Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by BKCW. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel. And guys, there's a lot to talk about this morning, but the first thing that we're going to talk about is we're going to head out west for a minute. Aaron Butler and his dad actually tweeted this last night. I'm going to bring it up here. He says, Texas and Washington, decision tomorrow. Again, that was yesterday evening. Bobby, I'm going to let you take this one.
3 words for everybody, every Longhorn out there that don't know what Steve Sarkisian does. Recruit through the whistle. 4 words. Look, a week and a half ago, Texas wasn't even involved here, Blake. Chris Jackson made a trek through Southern California, and then Texas became suddenly involved with one of the top 200 players in the country, a wide receiver out of Calabasas, California, 6 foot, 170-pounder named Aaron Butler. Butler originally committed to USC as a defensive back, I believe. At least that's where the Trojans wanted him. Then he committed to Colorado based on Deion Sanders and them wanting him as a wide receiver. He fell back out of that and now is looking at either Texas or Washington. This is a last-minute push by Steve Sarkisian and Chris Jackson to grab a receiver that they've long and literally one of the better players in the class right now, number 16 rated player overall in the state of California. So no joke here. 28 catches, 586 yards, 20.9 yards per catch, 5 TDs on the season. His numbers from 2022 were even better. 38 for 830, almost 22 yards a catch, plus 13 TDs. He only played in 4 games this season as a senior. It was not because of injury. He started getting ready for everything going on with recruiting. 21.93, 200-meter. His dad, Rob Devon Butler, played a little bit in the NFL as well. Another perhaps stamp of approval for Steve Sarkisian and what he's able to do and his staff is able to do with players. We mentioned Santana Wilson as a former, his dad's in the upper level management in the NFL, also played at 12 years in the league. Arch Manning, of course, those guys, Terrence Brooks, another one whose dad played in the NFL. If Butler signs with Texas today, and he's saying he is going to sign, it's a big one. And I'll add this, 17 early enrollees at this point for Texas. Butler, guess what, is an early enrollee. So that would be 18 out of 23 potentially that are early enrollees. We've talked about whether or not Sark is wanting more another receiver in the portal or if it would come in the high school ranks. It looks like as of right now, he may find one in the high school ranks, but we'll know later today. Texas and Washington among the teams. Look, this is not a slight guy from a recruiting perspective. He's offered by Alabama as well. Just would be an enormous late pickup for Texas.
And CJ, I know you have a couple of other notes on some other intriguing wide receiver prospects that people just eat up in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and let you get to those.
Yeah, wide receiver's been a pretty hot topic as of late, and obviously we're getting a little bit of a precursor in terms of the Texas and Washington matchup at the end of the month, end of the calendar, really, with the recruitment out of Calabasas, California. But right now, I was talking to Terry Bussey last night, and he told me Texas is in contact with him every day, and it's been ramping up over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, it is a bit contingent on what happens today with Aaron Butler, but I think that is worth noting. It's a noticeable update for Terry Bussey because that's one of those recruitments where you see the rankings, you see the 5 stars, you obviously know about the production, the talent on the field, and you're thinking, this guy's pretty fun. Bobby, he's a pretty talented guy. So Texas has been talking to Terry Bussey every day as of late, and that's been a change of what we have seen for the last couple of weeks. I do think we'll have to see, just what happens with Aaron Butler later today and see, just how much communication, follows up with Terry Bussey after that. On the other hand, Evan Stewart out of the portal from Texas A&M, a guy that Texas fans have been clamoring about ever since his portal entry. Well, even before then, that it feels like people have had their fingers on Evan Stewart dating back since to when he committed to Texas A&M as a potential Longhorn down the road. I'm told that there's not any communication so far. Texas obviously is preparing for the college football playoff. Evan Stewart in Texas so far not yet in communication. Again, as we've mentioned, I don't see it as a personal fit. I don't think that there's a path that leads the two sides to getting together finally, but you never know in recruiting. Could things open up down the road potentially? But right now, no communication.
And I want to say this, CJ, you got a direct text from Evan Stewart on that, correct? I mean, that was Evan Stewart telling you that fact. So it's not like the sources said or anything. It was Evan Stewart. So I thought that was a good nugget. The other guy that we need to talk about is De'Alen Evans out of Longview's Pine Tree High School. 20-plus tackles for loss, 2 consecutive years for him. 60-foot-plus shot putter, 6'4.5", 260 pounds. There's been some questioning of his athleticism, apparently. Watch this. The man with the basketball near the rim. Yeah.
I'm going to replay it one more time, Bobby.
Wow.
260 pounds, 360-degree dunk. Has a real issue with athleticism, clearly.
Right.
Yeah. We were talking before this. I couldn't do that without a basketball and just trying to jump. CJ said he couldn't do it without a trampoline. So that's.
Hey, I'm only 5'9".
The reality of it is De'Alen Evans has been committed to Texas A&M since 2022. I mean, this isn't a short-term commitment, but obviously the turmoil at Texas A&M has led to this point. Evans could do one of 3 things today. He could sign with either A&M or Texas. He does have a letter of intent in his inbox from the University of Texas. So this is not just hey, we might take him. He has a letter of intent available to sign. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, A&M has hired not only the Florida defensive line coach, and Florida is the one team he kind of tinkered with outside of A&M. A&M has hired the Florida defensive line coach, Sean Spence, and then also yesterday announced that the linebacker coach from Florida, Jay Bateman, would be the new defensive coordinator at A&M. So are they trying to wrap up De'Alen Evans in that way? Maybe. I don't think that's the purpose you hire a defensive coordinator. I don't think it hurts, though, in recruiting. At the same time, I know Texas was in contact with him yesterday, not only Steve Sarkisian, but also area recruiter Blake Gideon as well. He is said to be down now totally to A&M or Texas and very likely to make a decision today. He could, of course, also just announce a decommitment or saying he's going to wait until February signing period because he is not an early enrollee. So he can wait and push this back a little bit if he so desires. Number 72 overall player in the country by the On3 consensus.
Will be a phenomenal pickup for either team, no doubt about that. Well, Bobby, the other news, we've talked recruiting pretty much all week, but there's some actual team news as well, as the players had a press conference yesterday. Why don't you tell folks out there about that one?
Yes, a couple safeties. Michael Taft, Jaron Thompson met with the media, as well as Christian Jones, the long-term starter at right tackle for the Longhorns. They all met with the media yesterday. Taffy and Jones, Taffy and Thompson, I heard a lot of platitudes, if that makes sense. I don't think they were wanting to give anything away. Oh, Washington's offense is really good. Oh, we've got to be, really prepared because Michael Penix and the receivers are. That wasn't necessarily revealing. Maybe the most revealing thing for me had to deal with the camaraderie on the team itself right now. David Vinda was also met with the media yesterday. But it was Christian Jones that said something that I thought was just classic. He was talking about Jordan Whittington, his teammate, longtime teammate, getting offered an invite to the Senior Bowl this week. And Christian Jones said, literally, when I heard that, because he didn't get invited to the other game, a couple other games, got invited to the Senior Bowl. Christian Jones said he literally almost tried to do a backflip in excitement for Jordan Whittington. That's the kind of camaraderie, I think, on this team. I did mention David Vinda. He had something very interesting to say as well, Blake and CJ. He said, look, if we have a chance to be great right now, why not go be great? That was I'm paraphrasing there. He goes, we have a chance to be legendary. Why not go be legends?
Yep. I love that.
I like it too. And that's where they're taking it right now, guys. I think that, look, I think the team is focused. Sark is clearly, going 100 miles a minute in recruiting. We haven't even touched on Trey Moore yet, by the way.
Yeah,
right.
I need to get my news out of there. I texted with his marketing rep this morning around 7:00. The plan is still this weekend. Could it come earlier? Yes. But the plan as of right now for the UTSA edge rusher is sometime this weekend between Texas and Alabama for his signature.
All right, guys. Well, plenty of time to get your questions in, so please do so. We're going to be taking questions pretty much the rest of the entire show. But, Bobby, before we get to some of those questions, I want you to tell everybody about BKCW and how they can escape the insurance trap.
Yeah, you know about that insurance trap, huh, Blake? I tell you what, guys, if you've had a frustrating insurance or employee benefits renewal this year, most likely you didn't hear from your agent all year, and then right before it was time to renew, they delivered the bad news of a rate increase. When this happens, the agent is providing no value, and you're stuck in what we call the insurance trap. BKCW tries to take you out of the insurance trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of its headquarters in Austin, Texas, and owned by UT grads, BKCW uses a 5-step process to identify your business's weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. BKCW has already helped some of the most well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, and nonprofits in Central Texas escape the insurance trap, and it all starts with a free risk assessment. Go to bkcw.com or send an email to info@bkcw.com to get started with a free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap.
All right. We want to thank them for sponsoring every Friday right here on Coffee and Football. And guys, we got questions rolling in, so we're just going to go ahead and start getting to them. And we'll just start at the top here. This first one from Name Brand Cody. He says, is there actually any real chance at landing Ryan Williams? And if so, what chips need to fall for that to happen? What are we hearing from the Alabama side? Are they even concerned about a potential flip?
I think his reclassification to the 2024 class certainly makes things difficult. When you talk about a 2025 kid that's the top of the class and you have an entire year to, work towards and chip away at a current commitment, that's one thing. When you take away an entire year for which he still has not visited Texas, things become much more difficult there. And obviously we're seeing Texas remain active in the wide receiver market right now. Obviously, Aaron Butler, I just mentioned Terry Bussey as well. I think it's unlikely. Of course, Ryan Williams is a tremendous athlete. He's a tremendous prospect. Will they continue to, maybe kick the tires? Absolutely. I think it's unlikely with the shortened window and obviously the pursuit of other guys at the moment when you take that into consideration.
And I've got to add this note too, CJ, and I know you'll agree with me. He's committed to Bama, but he's been to Auburn, and that's where his dad went. I mean, they were chanting his name at a basketball game at Auburn just last week. So it's not just Alabama that Texas has to overcome. He is saying that he's likely to visit Texas in January. I have no clue if he has the classes to get enrolled in Texas. I don't know that yet. I haven't done a deep enough dive on that stuff. I can find out though, probably in the next week or so. The reality of it is Texas right now is playing from behind, even with the pledge of his high school teammate, the quarterback KJ Lacey. And so keep all of that in the picture. I think that Ryan Williams is a 10 to 15% shot for Texas at most right now. I do think it's going to be primarily a Bama-Auburn showdown, even though I think things could change if he visits Texas in January. That's when we'll see. That's when the rubber will meet the road, in my opinion.
Then another prospect that we've had lots of questions about this week, and today is no different. Sandman23 says, any updates on Dominic McKinley?
Blake, you and CJ know this well. He said on Wednesday that he's not announcing anything. He's going to take it all in and look around in the month of January. So he is not going to announce until February. Texas remains in contact with him and his mother at this point, including Bo Davis on a daily basis now. Steve Sarkisian still has his in-home visit that he can use in the month of January. I would not be surprised if McKinley showed up on camp on a couple of different campuses in January on unofficial visits. So keep that in mind. So we'll see. Right now, he remains committed to A&M, but it is as soft a commitment as you can call the 5-star out of Lafayette, Louisiana right now.
All right. Captain Americano has a loaded question. He says, can you give a breakdown on which positions and specific players you expect us to pursue, either high school or portal, between now and February?
Yeah, I think Texas is obviously in the market for a wide receiver. We're talking about an interior defensive lineman as well, with the 3 candidates that we've laid out throughout the week: Alex Foster, Dominic McKinley, and obviously De'Allen Evans as well. Those are the 2 that are still, seeing a lot of movement right now. Obviously, Texas did take Ty Anthony Smith on signing day, so linebacker now has a check by its name. Where will they go in the portal? I think that remains to be seen. There's still some guys that have yet to enter the portal as a result of bowl season. Still pretty young. A lot of bowl games left and a lot of movement still to be made in that portal. So we'll see where they target. Obviously, I think an experienced safety was knocked out of the park with Andrew Makuba, or experienced, defensive back, a versatile defensive back that can play safety, nickel, whatever you need from Andrew Makuba as well. Tight end is a spot that Texas is monitoring as well in terms of what Jatavian Sanders does, whether he goes pro or returns next year. We'll see, where the dominoes fall for Jatavian, and that will really dictate what Texas does moving forward in the portal, as well as, the high school ranks.
I would add this. So CJ did a great job there of saying this. The tight ends right now, Holden Stays is already committed to Tennessee, but if Jatavian Sanders goes pro as expected, and I was told that's 75-25, Holden Stays would become a priority target for Texas, even if he's committed to Tennessee. Texas and Holden Stays is saying that he's been told that if Jatavian Sanders goes pro, they want to talk to him. Will Holden Stays allow them to talk to him and all that stuff? We'll see. But the fact is, Steve Sarkisian and Jeff Banks very upfront with him. Hey, if JT Sanders goes, we're going to need a tight end, and you're one of the guys we want to talk to ASAP. So keep that in mind. Jordan Jolly out of UConn is another name in that category to think about. However, I would add to this, again, he's already being recruited by other programs, including NC State. So be aware of that. Also, I believe they're going to look at a punter. Now, this punter may not be a scholarship punter. It may just be a portal punter that wants to enroll in grad school. So keep that in mind. Other players and other positions, they're going to keep looking out for a defensive tackle at this point. If there's an adult defensive tackle they can find, like a Trill Carter that they did last year, late in the portal, they would definitely be interested there. Other spots that are possibilities. I think they could still look at another safety or another DB potentially. Again, they're losing 5 or 6 right now to the portal, and you can't just be entirely youth driven on incoming guys. Specific names at wide receiver. Right now, I don't believe there's a receiver in the portal that they are pursuing. Give it January 1, after all the bowl games are done. That very well, I expect actually that to change. That's what I would say to that. So, Captain Americano, be waiting for that, because that's when the other shoe drops, if those people actually show up in the portal, or one of them does.
There you go. We got a super chat, guys, from David Parcell. Thank you, David. We appreciate the super chat. He says, what a week, what a month, what a year. It's been great listening to you guys, and I look forward to more great content for years to come. Hook 'em. Thank you,
Hook 'em, David.
Thank you, David.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Rod Babers is driving down to Houston as we speak. getting ready to celebrate with his family. I know, CJ, you're headed up to Dallas to celebrate with your family. My parents came in over just yesterday, so we're getting ready to celebrate with them as well. So, Blake, you were out Christmas shopping in bullfrog rain last night, I was told. So, it's that time of year. We really appreciate you guys and have enjoyed every minute of it. And I'm thankful that Steve Sarkisian and this football team put together a great year, man. What a year to be a Texas fan right now. And now they're just dominoing and recruiting like it's nobody's business. So it just makes it all fun.
No doubt about it. And all Texas athletics really doing well. I mean, look at volleyball, national championship. Basketball was an Elite Eight. So it's been a phenomenal year for Texas sports. Okay, guys, this next question here from Bobby T.D. Brown. He says, do you think Alfred Collins comes back? Bobby, I'm going to let you start with this one.
No. Unfortunately, no. I don't. Now, it's not 100%, but I do know that he's already planning on working with a pro trainer in the offseason that has, and that's kind of the insight I have there on that decision. It's not coming directly from Alfred, but he's signed up to be in the pro training workouts this spring. And so that, while he could renege on that, clearly, I don't think that's the plan right now. I think the plan is for Alfred to try to go get paid. And, more power to him. He may end up being a better pro than he is a college player because he has those long arms and can be used in better situationally. I hope he comes back. I hope David Vinda comes back. We know Jake Majors is coming back. I hope JT Sanders comes back, and even potentially Adonai Mitchell or Jalen Ford. I hope all those guys do. But I also think that some of those are long shots. And Alfred Collins is a long shot.
This next question, and I'm going to give this one to you, CJ, first. He says, who are your projected starters on defense next year? This question from B. Brown.
Isn't that fun?
Woo! CJ, I'll ping you and you tell us. Okay, so I'm gonna line you up. Defensive tackle, the two defensive tackle starters.
Oh, Vernon Broughton's got to be a shoo-in. I think that this is enough development that we've seen this year to see, that vacancy that will, become available after Sweat and Murphy and Collins leave. Vernon Broughton's one of them. Will Trill Carter be the other one? Will it, a guy like Aaron Bryant, Dre Bledsoe fill that void? Could Texas portal? I think, that's probably the biggest question mark at the moment.
Gotcha. All right. So Vernon Broughton, I'm going to go Vernon Broughton and Trill Carter. But I do think that Sadir Mitchell and Aaron Bryant are in the rotation there at the very least. I think that I will say this, Mitchell has a chance maybe to overcome that. All right, go defensive end, edge. Both starters returning.
What's that?
Both starters returning at edge.
I like both of them to remain the starter. Texas is getting a lot of pieces on this edge now. That rotation is going to be pretty filthy when you consider how experienced this group will be, and also the talent coming in with Colin Simmons and a potential Trey Moore addition as well. But Burke and Sorrell are the two guys again.
Okay. All right. Linebacker, there's really only two. One of them we can pencil in Anthony Hill.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. And then it depends on whether David Vinda comes back, whether Jalen Ford, who knows whether he comes back. We think Ford is definitely gone, but never say never until he announces something. And then you talk about David Vinda and Maurice Blackwell. If you had to guess right now, how would you put it? Who would you put next to Hill based on your knowledge?
Look, I've pounded the drum for Leonga Lafau for a while. I know the game experience isn't quite there, but I think this could be a situation where as the season progresses next year, he'll, kind of chip away at a larger role. But right now, I like David Vinda. I think what we've seen from him this year gives me just enough confidence to say he can play all three downs. He can be that starting guy, and Texas won't necessarily be at a lack of, talent capacity at that linebacker spot.
I think it's Hill, and I would have to guess if he does come back, it's going to be David Vinda.
Yep.
But don't forget about Maurice Blackwell either. He
Definitely.
could be morphing into a different role if they move Hill into a true middle linebacker role like they had with Jalen Ford this year. All right, the star position, obviously, Jahdae Barron is out. He's headed to the pros. But Jalen Gilbo was next in line, but he may have just been jumped by an incomer. You agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, Andrew Makuba right away is the guy that comes to mind. What we've seen from him the last 3 years at Clemson, obviously freshman All-American accolades already under his belt. It feels like a natural fit. The two have trained together. They're good friends. You know, the talent skill sets are similar as well. It feels like it's going to be a smooth transition from one NFL defensive back to another.
All right. I agree with you on Makuba 100%. I think that's why they recruited. That's why they recruited him and brought him in. All right, safety. All right, cornerback. Let's go to cornerback. Terrence Brooks and Manny Muhammad definitely returning. Ryan Watts is not announced for the pros either, although we think he's going to head that direction. And then Gavin Holmes, the other one, as well as the incoming freshman in this category, particularly Kobe Black, who seems to be a little bit more ready than the other guys physically. Who do you have starting next year at defensive back? All right, cornerback, CJ.
I see it as Brooks and Muhammad, regardless of what Ryan Watts does. If he returns, that's tremendous. But I think what we've seen so far in terms of the athleticism and the speed specifically between the two, I think gives them the edge in terms of the fight going forward. We haven't seen, a whole lot of, play-to-play consistency out of Watts, at least that you would like in terms of the deep ball. So I give the edge to the two talented guys from the DFW area.
Yeah, I agree with you. Texas is trying to get faster, right? Mm-hmm. And they're trying to play a little bit more press on field and boundary. And I don't think you can take either Muhammad or Brooks off the field if that's what you want to do.
Right.
Now, Gavin Holmes can play press too on the field. He's got the makeup speed. So let's watch and see what he does. All right, safety. Did you have something, CJ?
I was just going to say the difference between the three of them is I think Holmes gets a bit grabby at times, which we haven't seen from those two other young corners, which is encouraging to me in the sense that, it's habitual. When you're at cornerback and you're on an island, you want to grab, you want to hold on. You don't want to create separation from the wide receiver. And I think at times as a defensive back, you either have it or you don't in terms of being, susceptible to penalties.
Got it. All right. Safety. This is Keaton Crawford and Jaron Thompson expected to move on after the college football playoffs. Michael Taft has done a tremendous job, right?
Yes.
In his time and his role. And then you have what is currently the true freshman, Derek Williams, back there too. Yet I will reiterate something they did this year. They played a lot of different players back there at safety, a lot of different combinations. But one of the up-and-comer guys that maybe we thought might see some action this year but just didn't, B.J. Allen, he transferred. Jalen Catalan transferred. Larry Turner-Gooden is going to be gone. Taft and Williams, probably the incumbents in your opinion?
Yeah. No, that's going to be a room that's flipped on its head almost immediately when spring ball arrives. And, credit to Michael Taft for coming in, earning a scholarship, and becoming a truly impactful guy. 3 straight games with an interception this season. The hustle, the effort stand out immediately, and he's rewarded a number of times. Obviously, I believe is the Houston game, a fortuitous Kansas State, maybe a fortuitous bounce to begin the second half that landed right in his arms. That's what you are rewarded with hustle and effort, and credit to Michael Taft. That's not going to ever stop in his game. So I like the two that you said, Derek Williams, Michael Taft. We'll obviously see that rotation continue. It's just going to be with a whole lot of new faces.
All right, guys, we got some follow-up questions to the topic that we just discussed. This first one from Jason. He says, did Vinda do enough to Wayne a draft grade worth declaring for?
No. He was a role player this year.
Yep.
He's not going to get a draft grade off of that. Now, if he comes back and starts 12 games next year, 13 games, whatever the number is, he literally could. I think he is just now learning and understanding that position. He's not overrunning holes like he was early in his career. He's not Like some guys let their eyes deceive them at linebacker. Linebacker is one of those plays or one of those places where you can't be too aggressive. I know that sounds weird when you're talking about football, but you have to let linebacker come to you a little bit. You have to read the play. You can't just go. And I think David Vinda was letting his eyes, there's that play. I can't remember the play where he let the running back on a crossing route leak over the top of him and get like a 30 or 40 yard gain early in the season. That sort of thing started becoming less and less as the season wore on with David Vinda. And I think that's a positive, but I don't think he's quite there yet.
Then this next question from Chris Bacon. And Chris asks, is Makuba for sure a star as opposed to safety?
I think that's a simple answer is, the star position for Makuba it's a seamless transition. Luckily for Makuba, there's also a lot of versatility under his belt. He has a lot of snaps at a number of positions just this year alone as well. So the experience at a number of spots is very valuable for Makuba and what Texas wants to do. It also allows them to, test a number of things. Can he drop back to the big safety? Obviously, Xavier Filsaime is also coming in to that mix as well. So we'll see. But I think stars where you'll see Andrew Makuba start the 2024 season.
Before we move on and take some more questions, Bobby, we've had a lot of people join since the top of the hour. So I want to go down some of this news that we talked about at the beginning of the show. And I'm going to turn it over to you on Aaron Butler.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron Butler, the news of the day is twofold. It's Aaron Butler and De'Alen Evans. That's what we're ardently tracking right now. Butler, a wide receiver out of Calabasas, California, 6 foot, 170 pounds, deciding between Texas and Washington. As you can see, this tweet was from yesterday. So that means today he's going to make a decision. He has not even visited Texas, but his dad is a former pro player, knows Sark's offense. Texas has been in constant contact over the last week and a half, including offering a scholarship. Texas or Washington today. Arizona was thought to be one of the leaders, but they've been pushed out. This is a young man that had 28 catches in 4 games this year, went for 586 yards. That's 21 yards a pop right at it with 5 touchdowns, 38 catches for 800-plus yards as a junior, 13 touchdowns then. He is another one of those guys, we talk about it, touchdown makers. 38 catches, 13 touchdowns as a junior. That's 1 every 3 times he touches the ball. We know that Steve Sarkisian likes those kind of players. All right, so there's that. That's happening. He's expected to announce today. There is some thought that Texas may actually be the leader in this, and they did not start recruiting him until about a week and a half ago when Chris Jackson, the wide receivers coach from Texas, was making a run through Southern California and found out about him, made an in-home visit, and, very interesting. Sark also saying that they weren't done at receiver on National Signing Day could be a hint here as well. So we'll see. That's expected to come today. The other one that we're mentioning is De'Alen Evans, defensive lineman out of Longview's Pine Tree High School. He's been long committed to A&M, 6'4.5", 260 pounds, threw the shot put 60 foot last year. Three-sport player, also announcing his decision today, we believe, between Texas and Texas A&M. There are thoughts that he could just stick with A&M. There are thoughts that he might wait until February to make a decision. I don't know which way it's going to go. What I do know is he has Texas scholarship papers in his inbox. So he could sign with Texas. He could stick with A&M. That one's a big toss-up to me. Those are the 2 biggest things going on right now. And then the third one is Trey Moore out of UTSA. He is expected to announce his decision over the weekend. I spoke with texted with his marketing agent this morning before the show. It is still supposed to be over the weekend, not today, but things can't have changed before with this decision-making process. Texas and Alabama, the 2 finalists there.
And Bobby, for those that aren't familiar with Trey Moore, can you kind of run down real quick what he would bring to the table for the Longhorns?
Trey Moore, he's an edge prospect out of UTSA that had 14.5 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, I believe, for UTSA and Jeff Traylor. He really came on last year. He was thought to maybe be going into the portal a year ago, I think he had 8 sacks as a redshirt freshman. As a redshirt sophomore this year, he had 14.5. And as soon as he went in, Texas went after him. Alabama, Ohio State, Ole Miss, just a plethora of schools went after him. But Texas and Alabama are the 2 finalists. His parents, he's originally from Smithson Valley, by the way. So he played his high school ball there, just down the road, about an hour away from the University of Texas. Bama, though, making this thing very, very interesting, in my opinion. So we'll see where that goes at this point.
All right, CJ. And then I know you had some notes on Terry Bussey just a little bit ago. So I'm going to also ask you this question and kind of let you reiterate what you said. Are we recruiting Bussey for offense or defense? That's asked by V. Brown.
Yeah, it would be at wide receiver. Bussey told me last night Texas is in communication with him every day. That has ramped up from a week ago, even 2 weeks ago specifically, when things looked like he and Texas were just about done, or at least Texas was running third fiddle to Texas A&M and LSU at the time. Texas has revamped their communication with Terry Bussey. Obviously, I think it is largely kind of dependent on what Aaron Butler does, and we'll certainly see this afternoon. If Texas will continue their pursuit of Terry Bussey, or if, the Aaron Butler sweepstakes are enough for them to be complete at the wide receiver spot.
Okay, guys, we're going to take some more questions here. And again, plenty of time to get your questions in on Coffee and Football, presented by BKCW. And another electrifying wide receiver that we haven't talked about in a while is Doran Moore, the LSU commit. He visited Texas and Oregon both over the course of the season, despite that LSU commitment. And Frioli 93 wants to know, what's the latest on Moore?
Man, you talk about a special player. That's Doran Moore. And this is a recruitment where, if all goes well on the field this year for Texas, it's going to be hard for Texas to not be in that picture when it's all said and done. I think that commitment currently to LSU is very flimsy, if you will. I don't think it's a very firm shut down the recruitment kind of thing, especially this early. That's one thing. For a kid of that talent to commit this early, it's going to be difficult for LSU to hold on to him, regardless of the season that they have this year, or even moving forward into 2024. So Texas will be a player. They're obviously prioritizing Doran Moore as well. They're going to make it very difficult for LSU to hold on to him. At the end of the day, I like Texas in that number 2 spot right now. And we'll see, just as these, kind of off-season junior days and big recruiting events start occurring on campus, just how much interest is still there for Doran Moore, because we know, Cam Williams is on roster. Colin Simmons is on roster. Alex January will be on roster. There will be a lot of Duncanville guys. Obviously, Jonte Cook's another guy in that DFW area with a lot of respect. He will have a lot of contacts and connections to the Texas team by the time he is ready to, fully sign and commit to a program.
We're going to jump back to this year's class. And Roger G wants to know, what recruits from that class could you see get a lot of playing time next year?
That's a tough one. Because so much of it depends too on who's going pro. I definitely could see Ryan Wingo immediately if he can get the routes, and that's one of the great things about being a midtermer. I mean, all these midterm guys just accelerates the learning process, right? And I could see him getting some action. I really think of all the defensive linemen right now, the most ready to go from the interior defensive line. I could see Alex January being as good or better than Aaron Bryant from the outset. I just, you know what I mean? So getting into that rotation, because I do think he's advanced from a skill perspective. It doesn't mean his talent is the best of the best, because I do think his talent is more than good enough. I just think that he has a chance, even at a position like that is kind of crazy, because he weighs more. This is another thing about Alex January. He already weighs more than Aaron Bryant. Okay. He weighs more than Trill Carter. He weighs more than Vernon Broughton. That could play a role in that category. And I know that's not necessarily one you want to talk about. After that, got to be Xavier Filsaime in the secondary for me. Couple reasons why. One, safety. He's a true safety. And that's a spot that is going to be, paper thin for the Longhorns next year with age-wise or from an experience perspective, and he has the speed. And I go back to something Rod Baber said on this show. Look, there are guys that can cover, and Texas is trying to find guys, safeties in particular, that can cover. And he and Derek Williams one-on-one are not necessarily mismatches for other teams. Michael Taft can be a mismatch for the other team. And so Jaron Thompson has been. Keaton Crawford has been. So as Texas looks to get away from that, I would probably say as a safety, Xavier Filsaime.
All right, E. Kim says, do you guys see Texas actually getting 2 more defensive linemen for February? And then he did go on to clarify he does mean high school recruits, not out of the transfer portal.
That's going to be a loaded class right there. If you take 2 more to get to 5, I think 1 is very likely. Obviously, we're in the conversation right now of what Texas will do with De'Alen Evans, Dominic McKinley, and Alex Foster. We're going to see a decision today for De'Alen Evans as well. I think 1's the most likely answer there. 2, and you start getting to 5 guys on the interior, regardless of how much you're losing, that's a lot. And it gets to be a tougher selling point as well to these recruits and commitments as well. So I think 1 is likely. 2 is a little probably far-fetched in my opinion.
And the next question comes from Gage Sheets. And he says, do y'all think winning the national championship gives us a much better shot at landing guys like Bussey and McKinley in the later window?
Yes. Yeah, this is exactly what we talked about. I mean, there is limited value, and I say limited, although it's obviously come home to roost. When you have a big winning season like Texas has had, there's only a couple guys that can impact down the stretch of a recruitment. Right. And certainly guys that are deciding in February, like Dominic McKinley, potentially like Terry Bussey, that can impact. Right. The real and truest impact will be in next year's recruiting class because they've seen all these guys. They've seen Texas win 12. They've seen the progression from 5 wins to 8 wins to 12 wins. That's when it all comes home to roost. That being said, I definitely think it could affect anybody making a decision. I can tell you right now, A&M doesn't want De'Alen Evans going to February with a decision. You think they want that? Because if that happens, it's over. They're going to have no momentum. That's just my opinion. So they're trying to get this thing closed out with Evans today. Texas is like, hey, do whatever you want to do, but we want you. You can come now or you can come later. Come visit us and check it out. Make sure you make a real decision because guess what? Evans is not a midterm like all these other guys. Aaron Butler, by the way, a midtermer. I forgot to mention that earlier. I feel like everybody's got to grasp that. So I don't know what's going to happen today with De'Alen Evans. I definitely think they'll go at least 1 more defensive lineman if they can get them. Possibly 2. That would be a little bit different. But yes, winning a national championship, being in the playoffs alone matter. Mm-hmm. Texas needs to go out there and prove their worth this weekend. All right, next. Gosh, guys, it's 10 days from today.
I know. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
A week from Monday, a week from Christmas, we're going to be seeing Texas playing in the college football playoff. Just wait until a lot of people are going to be sitting, eating and watching bowl games over the next 7-8 days. You know what I mean? Yes. Very fun time in college football. Count how many commercials that you see with Texas and Washington, Michigan, and Alabama in them over the next 10 days. It is going to be easily $10 million worth of free advertising for the University of Texas. Easily. It will be an infomercial, and that will affect recruiting.
Well, Bobby, kind of along the same lines, Peter wants to know, would Texas winning the national championship sway some of the guys most likely leaving for the draft to stay?
Or the other way around, right? Because they accomplished the goal, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe it increases the NIL coffers at the University of Texas enough that could have an impact. You know what I mean? But I don't know that to be the case. I would think that actually it might tweak a couple of people to actually go ahead and go, because they've done what they came there to accomplish. There's not another goal in sight other than repeating, right? But I think each of those decisions are individual. So I don't know that that's going to be the case.
All right, fellas, we got a super chat here from Don P. Thank you, Don. He says, does Cole Hudson transfer if Majors comes back?
I don't think he's looking to transfer at all.
Right.
Now, Cole Hudson and his dad, Scott, talking about guys that I'll say this. I'm going to try to say this the right way. Talk about guys that have the right mentality about college football and football in general. It's that family. They're not there. His dad played baseball at Arizona State. They get that it takes a lot of work. They get that it's an accumulation of what you do over 3 and 4 years that matters. They're not looking for immediate gratification. I think that, if Majors comes back, they're going to fight it out at guard with whether that's Neto or Hayden Connor. I mean, I've heard Hayden Connor might move to right tackle to try to fight Cam Williams for that spot, which I think that Hayden Connor would ultimately lose. But my point being, I haven't heard anything like that, and I'll check in. But that family has been one of the more impressive families to me in the recruiting process and during their time on the 40 acres, because you got to remember Cole played through injury all last year, guys. As a true freshman, he played through injury. This year, he had an injury that set him back a little bit, but he came back and he's worked at center. He's going to be one of those offensive linemen that in 4 years you're going to look up and he's going to be in the NFL. I mean, that's how good that recruiting class was, and he's a competitor. We'll see. I haven't heard anything about that.
Okay, we have a comment here, and it's been a while since we've seen Victor Aldridge comment, but he says, my cousin LaMarcus Aldridge says he'll be in Houston at the national championship game. He's already calling the win against Washington.
I love that.
Thanks for tuning in, Victor. Appreciate it. As always, appreciate your input. Okay, guys, this next question here is going to be from Shake and Bake, and he says, are they looking for a middle linebacker in the portal to keep Anthony Hill where he's at now?
Not at this time. It would have to be a special circumstance where they looked at one that was from Vanderbilt, I think, but passed. So not at this time. I don't see that. And I don't know of one in the portal that's just a natural fit, right? The one that may have been a fit was from Georgia, and he already signed with Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the one. He was like a Butkus Award semifinalist as a sophomore, and then got leaped on the depth chart at Georgia and ended up at Kentucky. Yeah, I mean, they have some talent over in Athens, I guess is the best way to put that.
All right, CJ, we got a question for you. And B. Brown wants to know, do you think that we land Devin Sanchez, the corner from North Shore?
Wouldn't that be nice, huh? Adding a 5-star with tremendous length. Texas is playing from behind here. This is a recruitment where Ohio State is considered the favorite. I know also Oklahoma is very high on his list as well. Jay Valai has done a tremendous job prioritizing Devin Sanchez. The biggest issue with Texas is he just hasn't been to campus recently. And that's one of those things where, regardless of on-field success, if you're not connecting with the coaching staff in person and, seeing what could be your next home for 4 years, it's hard to, really consider Texas to be in that top group at the moment. He's obviously had, long-standing relationships with Terry Joseph and Steve Sarkisian. But until there's a return visit to Austin, you just kind of have to tap the brakes a little bit. Ohio State is at that top. Oklahoma's in that mix as well. Alabama's poking around as well. LSU in the group. Texas has to get him back on campus, and that's just as simple as it gets.
All right, guys, we have a question here. This one from Name Brand Cody, and he says, what is y'all's opinion of this college football separating from other sports debate / reworking the season scheduling? Chip Kelly, obviously a major proponent of this. He had some he's had numerous comments, but he had more this week talking about, like volleyball and sports like that having to go across the country to play now.
I think he's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody knows he's right. the NCAA has never wanted to admit to that sort of thing. Charlie Baker, as the new NCAA president, is starting to understand that. He's proposed a new breakaway group that is kind of like the power group that decides their rules for college football, and then everybody else falls under the NCAA. Look, I've said this. The reason they're doing that, they want to abdicate. The NCAA wants to abdicate responsibility for that. All they care about is the NCAA basketball tournament. It's been their primary revenue driver for 25, 30 years. Ever since they gave away the rights to NCAA football, all the NCAA has cared about truly is basketball. And that's from the top of the org structure on down. They pretended to care about football because they know that was the biggest portion of the revenue for all of it, for their member schools. But they really haven't cared about football from the very top. I sat next to a guy at breakfast one time that told me, and this is in early 2000s, that all we really care about is basketball, because that's where we get all our corporate sponsorships from the basketball tournament. So what do you think? What do you think their attention to detail has been about football the last 20 years? And now we're at where we're at because of that. Just total abdication, in my opinion. And I feel like I look at it with Florida State and their conversations right now. I think they're supposed to have a board meeting here. It may have just started.
Oh yeah,
because it's 10 Eastern, right? Yeah. So it may have just started. They're trying to break away the grant of rights from the ACC. If they do that, the ACC is then going to be feckless, and you're going to see Clemson do the same thing. You'll see North Carolina do the same thing, and either they'll all go into the SEC, or they'll all go into the Big Ten, or they're all kind of create this kind of amalgam of conferences. I personally hope it becomes, I don't know, something like the North versus the South, or the East versus the West. I'm serious. I mean, something that is easy for everybody to understand. And then, then maybe conferences, there's still a reason for them. To Chip Kelly's point, then you can put, Arizona softball playing UCLA softball back together. You can put Texas basketball playing, or Texas women's basketball playing Baylor, right? Those sorts of things do make sense. It doesn't make sense for UCLA tennis to play Rutgers tennis. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no revenue involved in that. It's just and it doesn't help the students. It's one thing when these student athletes, like football players, if they're going to participate eventually in revenue sharing with television, it's worth it to them. Is it worth it to the lacrosse player to go, play in Ames, Iowa, or, hell, wherever? It doesn't. And so you have to figure out what that all means. And I think that breaking football away makes the most sense.
Definitely.
Do you keep some construction of the SEC and the Big Ten? Yeah, I think so. I think those two will end up being the power brokers that decide and dictate what the next iteration of college football looks like, alongside ESPN, Fox, CBS, the networks, right?
Bobby, we had a question yesterday that I kind of wanted to bring up in regards to Florida State, whether or not they were to join the SEC and bring, 2 or 3 schools from the ACC with them. Do you kind of have a preference, or, an idea, maybe not an idea, but like a preference in schools that would come with Florida State that would make, kind of the most optimal, kind of brand new SEC of 20 teams? Are there 3 other teams that you see as good SEC fits in that conference at the moment?
I think they would want 2 or 4. They would want even numbers.
Yep.
And so the 4 that would be almost automatic, in my opinion, if they went this direction, if they could get them.
Yeah.
Okay. Florida State goes together with Clemson. That breaks the single state rule, both the state of Florida with University of Florida and with Clemson and the University of South Carolina. So that breaks that Eastern single state rule. And then the 2 that they really want adds more footprint are Virginia and North Carolina. They could care less. They could care less about Virginia. I know Virginia Tech fans are going to And they may never break away. Virginia and Virginia Tech may never break away. And North Carolina may never break away from North Carolina State or Duke. But if you had a football-only conference, North Carolina would have no problem breaking away from Duke because they could still play Duke in basketball, right?
Right.
The team that I think might get left out in that, even though they have an enormous media market, is Miami.
I'm with you.
So what do you do with Miami? Or do you take Miami instead of Virginia Tech? If Virginia and Virginia Tech say they just won't split, do you take North Carolina and Miami alongside Florida State and Clemson?
And
Those are questions those are questions above my pay grade. But I will say this: I feel confident that Greg Sankey at the SEC is better than anybody else to manage those kind of questions. He has just proven time and time again to be a step or two or four ahead of everybody else in college football.
Now, Virginia over Virginia Tech's interesting, but I like it.
You have to choose Virginia over Virginia Tech, even though Virginia Tech's a more passionate fan base.
Basketball, baseball, everything along the lines.
DC. It's closer to DC, the DC market. I think Virginia's a bigger brand name. Yeah.
Hey, Bobby, that FSU meeting is for sure underway. They've done the roll call for the trustees, and the FSU president says, "I've asked you here today because I believe FSU athletics is under challenge, requiring action on our part." And also the agenda has been posted, which includes new business informational update and action items regarding legal matters related to the Department of Intercollegiate Athletics. So it's under full swing right now as we talk.
They got to break that grant of rights is what they got to do. They break the grant of rights. Right now, the grant of rights, if they have to stick to it, it's $500 million. You can't write that check.
No.
You can't write that check. It's not 50. By the way, y'all know that Texas didn't pay jack to get out of the Big 12?
Yep.
Wow.
Why don't y'all think about that? Everybody will say, oh, it's going to be $80 million. Zero.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Move a game to Michigan to a home game with for Fox next year. Same with Ohio State. Move it up.
Yeah.
Speaking of Michigan, CJ, I know we were talking a little bit ago, and Harbaugh, man, Chargers, what's up there? Let everybody know our conversation.
Well, apparently, according to BetOnline AG, he is now the betting favorite in Vegas to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. And we've talked about the ongoing allegations, obviously the whole cheating, Spygate scandal this season as well. How crazy would that be? I mean, they're in the college playoff. They're dominating Ohio State. Michigan opens up. Potentially, that would create quite a domino effect across all of college football.
You know who would be the betting favorite immediately to be the next Michigan head coach?
Hit me.
Not Sharon Moore. Brian Kelly.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. If they could
pry him away from LSU, he would be the betting favorite. Because look, Michigan roots, coached at, I think, was it Central Michigan? Is that the one that he led into that? Then went to Cincinnati, then Notre Dame. He's been a Midwest guy.
Yeah.
He's only spent a couple of years in Baton Rouge. Just put that out there. Then that opens LSU. What does LSU do? I don't know. There's a lot of dominoes. If he goes to the Chargers and they don't go with Sharon Moore at Michigan, which I don't think they will,
right? And
they go with somebody like Brian Kelly, that opens up a whole nother can of worms. And you don't think that'll affect DeCorian Moore? You don't think that'll affect Dominic McKinley? Some of those guys, Terry Bussey, guys for next year for sure.
Brian Kelly can finally ditch that fake Cajun accent as well. So. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, man. All right. Hey, Bobby, real quick, we have a lot of people asking this question. Roger G wants to know, what time do Aaron Butler and D'Alen Evans announce? I know there's nothing set in stone, but can you just go over that for people?
Love to tell you, but I don't know myself. And I don't think D'Alen Evans went to bed last night knowing what time he was going to announce. Now, Aaron Butler may have a better sense of it. Just to be clear, I'm not saying it's 100% that Aaron Butler's going to Texas. Some people are asking me about that. I think it's very much Texas versus Washington, according to his father. And I don't know that either of them have a defined date or time right now. They could be waiting for edits from graphic edits from guys like Hayes Fawcett of On3. They could be waiting for videos from their local. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that they could be waiting on that may not be as time sensitive as what we think of. I don't think either of them have this is important. I don't think either of them have an announcement ceremony set. I think it'll drop on social media.
All right, guys. So we're going to take a few more questions here before we get out of here. And let's take this one from Todd Lacey. Who do you see surprising during the spring? What player would you choose if you had to pick one?
Wow. You know who got mentioned yesterday, CJ, in that player availability? Darian Gillette.
There we go.
Right?
I love hearing that.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's one of those guys that you didn't necessarily expect to hear, but he was injured as a senior in high school, CJ, then came in and kind of sat a little bit and has been trying to get it up. But look, that's another guy in whatnot that could happen, that could look for it. I want to see what Jonte Cook does as a lead receiver. I want to see what DeAndre Moore and Ryan Niblett do. For me, I think that the replacement of the receivers next year with Quinn Ewers coming back, the replacement of those veteran receivers is going to be ultra important going into the SEC, because I do think the offensive line is going to be fine.
CJ, you got a pick? Uh-oh. I think
one guy I want to watch is Jelani McDonald. Jelani McDonald's a guy I want to watch. You know, that's a secondary that has a lot of moving pieces. He has a tremendous skill set in terms of versatility and length. Where does he fit in that defense? I know we talked about linebacker also being, you know, one of those spots that I'm glad, or that you said basically Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon are probably happy that Jeff Choate's out of the picture now, because they can have their claim to him in that room specifically. So I do want to see what happens with Jelani McDonald. He's an interesting prospect to me. And then obviously Leon Galafau.
All right. And then Kim with the question, guys. He says, is there a Christmas Day coffee and football show? The answer to that question is no. I know we did Thanksgiving, but we're not doing Christmas. So we will be back on Tuesday morning.
Hey, Blake, tell people that what your giveaway is today too. We need to get that mentioned so that everybody gets a chance to put into that if they want to put into it.
That's right. We got the Colt McCoy, Jordan Shipley autographed mini helmet here. Sorry, I forgot to bring myself up, Bobby. That we'll be drawing for at the very end of the show. I got my 11-year-old who's a lot smarter at doing the Twitter things than I am. He's going to put it in there somehow and randomly pick a winner. But all you got to do is just, number one, you can double your chances by subscribing to this channel. But number two, you got to go retweet the tweet. You can see that on Texas Football Twitter or mine, either one. But yeah, we'll be drawing here in just a minute. So just a few minutes left to do that, Bobby. Before we move on, though, I'm going to let you tell everybody about BKCW Insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about BKCW, we talk about the insurance trap. BKCW tries to take you out of that trap by providing you with actual risk management consulting, not just price quoting. Operating out of their headquarters in Austin and owned by a UT grad, BKCW uses a 5-step process to help you and your business identify weak spots, design a plan, execute it, and monitor your situation throughout the year so that you can lower your insurance costs and effectively manage your company's risk. BKCW has already helped some of those well-known construction companies, restaurant groups, breweries, and nonprofits in Central Texas escape the insurance trap. And it all starts with a free risk assessment. That's right. It's completely free for you and your business. Go to bkcw.com or send them an email, info@bkcw.com, to get started with a free risk assessment or claims audit and escape the insurance trap. Hey, I want to say this. We have a special interview I'm hoping to post on Saturday, by the way, with a special Longhorn. I hope everybody gets a chance to tune into it. Going to be a little bit of a Christmas present, I hope, for everybody.
There you go. Bobby with the tease there, getting you guys ready for the pre-Christmas weekend, I guess you could say. All right, guys, we're going to take a couple of more questions before we get out of here. And let's take this one from Roger G. Does Texas rotating a lot of players at most positions prevent players from wanting to portal out?
I certainly think it helps.
Absolutely.
Mean, I think that getting guys in the rotation. Think about it. Look, Manny Muhammad saw time as a true freshman. Anthony Hills, Derek Williams, getting guys on special teams matters. Yeah. You mentioned LaFau. What about Warren Roberson, Jelani McDonald, guys like that? They want to play. That's what everybody wants to do. DeAndre Moore getting some return time. Jonte Cook, even though he didn't catch many, he got some time, right? I think Trey Wisner is another one. Get him on the field some which way, right? Those guys, that's just a good piece of it's just good work, I think, from the Texas staff. And I definitely think it makes them feel like, hey, we're gonna be doing that. So we'll see how it goes. But I definitely think their work in the rotation has been helpful. I think the fact that they've been successful as a team is helping retention for sure. I think another help with retention is the culture of the team. Yeah, these guys like each other. They're brothers. And when Malik Murphy cries, literally, because he's having to transfer because he knows he has to do it, not because he's wanting to do it. That tells you that speaks to you. You know what I mean? And I think that the Texas fans should be proud of that for their team and for these kids.
This next question, guys, is going to be from Chris Bacon, and we've actually had this asked a few times today, but he said, are we still at 90% on Quinn Ewers returning, regardless of the outcome of the next two games? Bobby?
Look, I was given 90%. I moved it up to 95, and then they made the college football playoffs. Okay? Quinn Ewers goes out and throws for 400 the next two games. That ain't 90% or 95% no more, because his stock will skyrocket, and you never know if it's ever going to be that high again. Yep. And so, while I still think if he has a normal two games or a normal game, I would still put it at 95%. If he doesn't have normal games, that number comes down precipitously, despite what he's being told behind the scenes from people close to him. I mentioned this before. Quinn Ewers they've been talking about you need to have 25 starts or more. But that's kind of that golden number. If you've had 25 starts or more, you're more prepared for college or for pro football than if not. The number of successful QBs with 25 starts or more compared to 25 starts or less is significant. It's like 60% success rate versus 25% success rate. That's what right now. That's what the agents, that's what the people behind the scenes are talking to him about, and it makes complete and utter sense. He needs another year of physical development, more lower body. He needs to get on the squat rack, that kind of stuff. Then he'll start looking like that. He's got the golden arm. We agree, right? There's no question about that. He's got to get the other accoutrements, right? Plus the experience.
For sure. All right, Todd Lacey bringing the heat today with some good questions. Here's another one. He said, can you go over the roster numbers, specifically how many high school recruits and portal transfers Texas can take in this class?
We don't know. All right, so first of all, roster numbers, there's a limit of 85 scholarship players that every program has. That being said, we don't know exact numbers. Right now, they're at 22 signees. They could be at 24 by the end of today. Then you add two portal guys in Makuba, Andrew Makuba out of Clemson, as well as, Matthew Golden out of the University of Houston, even another possible one with Trey Moore. So that would be three portals plus 22 or 24 high school guys. That's 26, 27 plus, right? However, we don't know how many are portaling out. We don't know how many are going pro. And until Texas figures that number out, they don't know the real number. I do believe they were right at the 85 heading into this year. I think they're going to try to touch that number again this offseason. There is no predefined number right now, though, for Texas. I think we're going to see 4 or 5 more guys portal after the new year from Texas who just don't see a path to the playing next year, or they'll portal in the spring in the month of April/May, the next portal period.
We're going to go 2 more questions, fellas. This first one from Peter. As of right now, what is your guys' projected wide receiver depth chart for next year? CJ?
I think Jonte Cook's penciled in. I love what he brings to the table from an entire skill set. I think he's one of the most all-around wide receivers I've ever covered in recruiting. I'd like him to take that leap, as we've seen with Xavier Worthy year to year. Matthew Golden is also a guy that will be in that conversation as well. And then things get interesting because there's not a whole lot of experience. There's not a whole lot of production in what Texas has currently. Do they go back out and get another portal guy just to kind of have a body in the room with production experience? That remains to be seen. Obviously, Ryan Wingo's the prize of the class at the position as well. The 5-star, 6'2", can run like the wind. I think he'll be rotationally in the mix. I don't think he'll be a starter off the jump. I think it's a little unfair to say he's going to be able to learn the nuances of Steve Sarkisian offense right away. So it's a big question mark. I do know Cook will be in the rotation. I hope DeAndre Moore makes that leap as well into being a reliable contributor. But right now, Golden and Cook are probably the two guys I can for sure point to and say, I know that they'll be catching a lot of passes next year.
Okay, guys, this is going to be the last question for today. Then we better get out of here. And goodness, my mouse just jumped and I lost the question. Oh, from AJJ Sports. He says, who aren't the early enrollees? I think it's a lot easier to say who isn't as opposed to who is. Bobby, I'm going to let you take that one. And
I'm going to bring this up. I tell you what I'm going to bring up. Hold on a second.
I got it right here, Bobby.
Oh, you got it? Go for it. All right.
Freddie DuBose.
Take that one down. All right. What'd you say? Freddie DuBose?
Is not.
Oh, who are not.
Yeah.
So these are the ones that are. Tyanthony Smith is. This is an old graphic. We created this graphic on signing day. So Brandon Baker is Ryan. All right. Offensive line. I think all 3 of them are early enrollees. Kibble, Baker, and Daniel Cruz. If I'm not mistaken. Maybe Kibble's not. I'll have to double check. Geez, you guys are asking me hard questions today. No. Who's not? Santana Wilson is not of the DBs, right? I think all the other DBs are. Defensive lineman who is not.
Melvin Hills.
Melvin Hills is not. Both edges are early enrollees. I think maybe Nate Kibble's not, but I got to double check that. I don't know if any of the receivers are not. That's about it. Trey Owens is. I mean, look, right now, it's 17 of 22 that are early enrollees. So we're only looking at 5.
All right, guys. Well, Bobby, before we get out of here and before we draw the winner, I want you to tell everybody what they can expect on Texas football later today and, of course, throughout the weekend.
Yep, so absolutely. We got the live stream at 1:00 today. That'll be probably talking a lot about recruiting if a couple of news breaks happen here in the second half of the day. And then also we've got some more interviews, et cetera, coming up, as well as some recruiting breakdowns. CJ and I really tried to break down where all these commits are coming from, what's going on with them, and who recruited them. For example, I'll just start it. One of the things we're going to talk about is just the utter domination Texas had in DFW this year. The numbers tell the whole story. Jeff Banks, the area recruiter, Steve Sarkisian really got after it. They killed it in DFW this year. Florida, another spot, Houston. We'll talk about that kind of stuff and more later today and into the weekend.
Okay, well, Bobby, it is time for us to draw the winner of the Colt McCoy Jordan Shipley helmet, a little early Christmas present from On Texas Football to you faithful viewers out there. I got my son, Tate. Come here, Tate. He's doing the Twitter show. Go ahead and tell us who the winner is. Talk loud.
Samuel Perry.
Samuel Perry, congratulations. So Samuel, reach out to me on Twitter if you can, and I'll actually message you as well. And we will get all that in for you and get that sent off to you. And so once again, Merry Christmas from Coffee and Football and On Texas Football. Merry Christmas to all you guys out there as well. We can't thank y'all enough for tuning in each and every single day with us. And by the way, thank you for the super chats. And we want to thank BKCW as well. So for Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel, I'm Blake Monroe. And no show on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday. So we'll see you then.
Hook 'em, guys.